had that Mercedes job that drags out longer than it should? You plug in the tool, pull the codes, and nothing matches to what the car's actually doing. You follow the data, you hit a dead end, and you start wondering if this is a point where you need the dealer tool. Most technicians aren't sure where the line is, and that's the problem. In this video, we're going to make it absolutely clear. Let's first talk about the wall that you keep hitting with Mercedes. You've got a drivability fault, a random warning light, an electrical issue that just doesn't make sense. You plug in your aftermarket tool. A good one normally works perfectly on other brands. You get a communication error on a key module, so you start to work around it. You look on forums, you talk to friends. Now the bay is tied up, the customer is annoyed, and you've lost a load of time. Here's what's actually going on. Most modern Mercedes have a lot more going on than what the tool can actually see. There are dozens of ECUs across multiple communication networks talking to each other constantly. Your aftermarket tool might pick up half of the modules are there, but the chances are the fault is going to be located in the other half that it can't see. And that's when you hit the wall. It's not because of your skill, it's because you're working with inaccurate or incomplete information. The tool gives you just enough information to start the job, but not enough to be able to finish it. And this is the point where you subcontract or you push the work out to the dealer, rather than keep the work in-house. The only difference between them and you is the tool that you have in-house. To really see the difference, let's walk through a few scenarios that independent workshops who deal with Mercedes will typically see. The first scenario happens when you plug an aftermarket tool into a Mercedes and you get your basic module list. Everything appears green and it looks as though you have full communication. But aftermarket tools can often overcompensate and not show you what you're actually missing. So, for example, if a control unit is offline or not responding properly, an aftermarket tool might show it as being okay or simply won't display the missing module at all. So the scan looks clean, the fault is still active, but you've still got nothing that points to what's actually going on. And this is what has techs running around in circles. Now contrast that with Xentry, the Mercedes official system. The moment you connect, you get the full network view. You get every control unit, every communication line, and every status. Anything that isn't talking stands out straight away as you're communicating with the entire vehicle and seeing everything that's going on. So instead of clearing codes, watching them come back and trying to work backwards from the symptoms, you can see which modules are not responding and know where to start checking. Another situation that workshops hit with aftermarket tools is they get the fault code, but it doesn't actually explain what's going on. You scan the vehicle with an aftermarket tool, you get a transmission or drivetrain fault code, but just a very short one with a very short description, and it doesn't actually give you a clue of where to go next. You're usually left deciding whether it's the part, the wiring, or the software, and any of these assumptions can lead to a very expensive mistake. With the genuine equipment, however, when the same fault code comes up, you'll get an additional number and often some additional information. So in other words, it's more granular, more detailed information, helping you to then follow the guided diagnostics to finish the fix. And most of the time, this is the difference. What might look like a failed component on an aftermarket tool will look completely different once you've gone through the guided diagnostics on an OE tool. Now, there's a third scenario, and this is what catches most workshops out. You diagnose a faulty control unit, you fit a new part, but the car still refuses to run properly. Nothing is wrong with the installation. The problem is that the new module hasn't been programmed to the vehicle yet. A new unit arrives from Mercedes in a neutral state. It needs to be coded to the car and registered on the system before anything will work. The process requires SCN coding, which is the factory method for programming the part to the vehicle. This is where Xentry becomes essential. SCN coding is carried out through Mercedes servers, and it gives the new unit the information it needs to be able to operate in that specific vehicle. Without that step, the car will not accept the module, no matter how many times you clear the faults or cycle the ignition. Some aftermarket tools advertise coding abilities, but these are limited to basic offline adjustments or activating features that already exist. They cannot perform the online programming that is required for security-related modules. This is a hard limit. If you're replacing items like engine control units, transmission controllers, airbag units, or ADAS components, you need the factory system. Attempting to program a new part with an unsupported tool can turn a new unit into an expensive replacement and a dead module. This is one of the clearest lines of what an aftermarket tool can do and what Xentry is needed for. So where is that line? When is your aftermarket tool great and when is it a liability? Your aftermarket tool is your go-to for triage and quick scans. For your first health check or initial code pull, a good aftermarket tool will read all the basic DTCs from all the main systems. Routine service work. These tools are profit makers for daily jobs. This is your bread and butter work where these tools really excel. Live data and bidirectional controls. For modules it can see, a professional aftermarket tool is great for viewing live data and running active tests. You absolutely must use Xentry when it comes to these 5 things. A module isn't communicating. If your aftermarket scanner is showing a module as not talking or missing, you have to stop. Xentry is the only tool that can definitively diagnose if the module is offline and why. Number 2, you're replacing any security-related module. So if you're swapping out an ECU, an airbag controller, or any other intelligent VIN-coded module, you need Xentry for SCN coding. There's nothing else that works. Number 3, the job involves a safety or ADAS system. So if you're calibrating a radar sensor or a camera after a windscreen replacement or collision, you need the precision of the OEM tool. Using unapproved tool here is a massive liability. Number 4, the fix is a software update. Many drivability issues with modern Mercedes vehicles isn't due to the hardware, is due to a software bug, and the only way to fix this is to flash the module with updated software from the Mercedes servers, a job only Xentry can do. Number 5, you need guided diagnostics. When you're lost in a forest of electrical faults and generic codes are getting you nowhere, you need step-by-step guided test plans in Xentry. This is where it becomes your most powerful tool. Every good tech has a story about that nightmare job that they finally cracked with the right tool. If you've hit your own diagnostic dead end on a Mercedes and an aftermarket tool just couldn't cut it, drop your story in the comments. What was the tool, what was the car, and what did it finally take to crack it? If you're also looking at starting to repair more Mercedes in your workshop, take a look at Xentry Lite on our website. So don't get me wrong, aftermarket tools are far from useless. They're a really valuable, powerful and profitable tool that every workshop needs. However, if you want to keep all of the work in-house and you're working on Mercedes-Benz, there are limits, and this is where you're going to need to invest in the OE tool, and this means you can finish all of that work in-house rather than subcontract or send out to the dealer. It's an investment in your workshop's capability, reputation, and its bottom line. Thank you so much for watching. We post videos like this every week. If you'd like to see more OE and aftermarket diagnostics content, then have a look at our newly launched community. In the community, you can find the latest OE updates, talk to our OE experts, and to other independents looking to keep more work in-house. Click the link in the description and we'll see you there.